Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with Anthony Faso. We just wrapped up our interview with Craig Ballantyne, who's known as the world's most disciplined man. Mm-hmm. Anthony, what's the takeaway or two you had?
He dropped some great nuggets, and many stuck in my mind. One was, it was better to take away something bad than to add something good. I thought was very interesting. And also he talked about, if you want to be great, you need to be able to focus on one thing. And he says you need to be the Nopra, meaning the person who's saying no to things so you can be able to focus on the great things. And also, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you've heard some of these topics before. And one thing I'd ask them, well, what do we do is if we've tried something like this before, what are some tools we can do to help set us up for success? So he shared some of those today as well. Cam, what were some takeaways you had?
Yeah, there was a part in his book where he talks about you don't rise to the level of your goals, but you fall to the level of your preparation. Man, I love that quote because I think a lot of people are delusional when it comes to life in general, is that they think things are just going to work out. If you don't put the effort into it, there's almost 0% chance of that happening. And so, again, we made reference to that as far as kind of how that relates to us and the savings piece to personal finance. But again, you could take that to really any aspect of life. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was a great one. The other one that I was making a correlation on was really he's talking about somebody out there going and building a system to achieve a certain goal. And that's exactly what we do day to day, right? That's what we're doing with infinite banking, is we're building a system to get us to a goal that we want to achieve, creating passive income. And so I saw those two correlations that were great. Hope you guys enjoy this podcast. Again, it's Craig Ballantyne. He is author, productivity coach, and he is a high performance mentor. He's also author, man. He's written several books. The most recent one that he's on here promoting today is going to be The Dark Side of Discipline. Hope you guys enjoy this podcast.
Enjoy the episode.
If you're an investor or want to be an investor and you're looking to create passive income that exceeds your monthly expenses, then this is the podcast for you. Here on the Infinite Wealth Podcast, we combine the philosophies of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, along with Nelson Nash's infinite banking concept. Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. And guys, today I am excited. We've got our guest, Craig Ballantyne, joining us today. Craig, welcome.
Hey, this is going to be a lot of fun, guys. Super excited for this.
I am super excited is because today, Anthony, we have got the world's most disciplined man on our show. Now, Craig, Anthony calls himself the world's sexiest CPA, but that is self-proclaimed.
Yeah.
I want to know how you got that title. Tell us listeners how you got that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And you know, I'm not like David Goggins out there running ultra marathons every single day, but years ago, I had one business and I bought another business, and they're both online businesses. And I was cranking out so much content. And a friend of mine in Chicago, a guy named Ed O'Keefe, said, "Craig, you are the most productive person I know. Therefore, you must be the most disciplined man that I know." And then that kind of caught on as, a little phrase that a lot of my coaching clients would say. And the bottom line is, I'm actually not a disciplined person by nature. I'd like to sleep till 11 o'clock in the morning, wake up, eat chocolate cake, and watch college football, all day, every day. But I also know that I want to achieve great things in life. And so when I was younger, I started building systems, because systems are far more powerful than discipline, because your discipline is a depletable resource, but your systems, man, if you get them right, they're almost unbreakable, and they will help make the right actions automatic. And that's a key lesson for everybody listening.
So when did you make that realization, right? You said you're not disciplined by nature. When did systems come in, and what's your story?
Well, I think some of the most important systems that I built in my life when I was a binge drinker and I didn't want to be a binge drinker. And the way that we talk about systems in our world and in my books and our courses that we sell with people is that we call them effortless discipline systems, because if you have the right system, the right actions are automatic, and it almost becomes effortless to get success. So I didn't want to be a binge drinker. I hung around people that were binge drinkers. I spent all my time in places where binge drinking was socially acceptable, and I had alcohol available all the time.
Yeah.
So in order to not have that, I needed to go through the 3 steps. 1 is elimination. 2 is preparation and preparing the good habit to make it easier to do. And then 3 is connection, being connected to people that help you reach your goals. So obviously with the alcohol, I eliminated it from the house. I eliminated myself from boozy environments. So I didn't go to sporting events on Saturday afternoons, and I didn't go to bars, etc. And I eliminated the toxic people whose only purpose in my life was to drag me down to drinking. So those 3 things, what we want to do in any bad habit, whether we're addicted to our phones, whether you have a pornography habit, whether you're addicted to Netflix, binge eating, whatever it is, you want to put as much friction as possible in the way of doing the bad thing. Because most people who struggle to start a good habit, there's too much friction in your way. For example, I was a personal trainer for about 15 years before, during my online fitness business and that sort of stuff, before I switched over to business coaching that I do now. And many people that come to a personal trainer have a hard time with exercise. And that's because there's too much friction in the way of them exercising. So they wake up in the morning with no plan. If you have no plan, that's friction. They wake up in the morning, they don't even know what to wear. The clothes are still in the closet, so that's more friction. And they have no community, et cetera. And it's just really hard to get an exercise habit. So what we would teach people is, hey, leave your clothes beside the bed, print out your workout program or have your app ready, and then your shoes should be there. And if possible, have a workout buddy so that there's less friction. So that's the planning and preparation part. And for me as a binge drinker, what I did was there were drinking friends that I didn't want to give up in my life, but I didn't want to go and binge drink with them. So I was like, oh, I'll just plan and prepare other events. So, Saturday morning, let's go hiking. Then you guys can go to the Blue Jays game, because I lived in Toronto for a long time. And, that's where we would start drinking sometimes. And you guys go to the game. I'm not going to go, but I planned and prepared for time with good people outside of it. And then the third thing, so after I do the elimination, I make the bad habit as hard as possible to do. Then I do the preparation. I make the good habit as easy as possible to do. Then I get connection. I get connection to people who will support me and who will lift me up to the next level. And so I started hanging around more good people who were non-drinkers. And, I'm not judging somebody who drinks. Like, you want to drink, fine. Don't let it get in the way of your life. But if you want to have a drink, great. But I started hanging around people who, I've known Lewis Howes, who's a very famous, podcaster guy. I've known him since 2009. In 2009, he said, I've never had a drink of alcohol. And I was like blown away, right? Because I was still a bit of a binge drinker. I couldn't imagine somebody going through their life and being, relatively cool and successful and not having alcohol. But I didn't know that, because every person I hung around was a binge drinker. So I just started going, oh, wow, look, there's all these non-drinkers. And I started to spend more time with them. And that's the connection part. Because if you have accountability to somebody that you either deeply do not want to disappoint, or a community of like-minded people, then when you say, hey, this is what I want to achieve, if you're a person of integrity, you will follow through, because you don't want to be a hypocrite. So elimination, preparation, and connection, those 3 systems, again, it's not complex, but they can be applied to removing any vice and, improving any virtue in your life. And that's how you do it.
You're doing such a good job opening. We had prepared some questions for you, really on like why this is important, and you're already answering the questions before we even begin.
Oh man, I've done this over 1,000 times, and I just get so excited, man.
This is what it looks like. Yeah. Craig, you mentioned elimination and you mentioned subtraction. And to be honest, yesterday I was driving from Salt Lake City back to Vegas, and I was listening to your book on Audible.
Cool.
And there was points in time where I would kind of hit pause and I'd start to take notes on my phone, and my wife would be like, what the hell are you doing? Right.
Seems like you're driving.
Were you driving a Cybertruck? That's okay.
Yeah. So I'd hand it to her, right? She'd start typing in notes. But one of the things that I had made sure I wrote down was in the book, you talked about, to do big things, you've got to do less things.
Yeah. To do if you want to do great things, you have to do fewer things.
Excellent.
If you want to do great things, you have to do fewer things.
Man, now, I hit pause on that, and I kind of sat there and thought about that for several minutes. You mind unpacking that for our listeners?
Sure. So if you think about every person that we look up to as great, like seriously great, whether it's Kobe, a lot of sports fans, Kobe, Jordan, yesterday, we're recording this in April. Yesterday, Rory won the the masters. Like, okay, is he also an actor? No. Is he like doing 19 different things? No. He is super focused. And when Tiger was on top of his game, Tiger spent 12 hours on the range in 2007 when Tiger was number one in the world. But that, he was doing very, very few things. Well, he's doing stupid things other than golf, but he only was doing two things, right? He was playing golf and he was, playing in the rough. And so he wasn't doing a million things. And that's where the typical entrepreneur, this is where things break down, is that I talk about this in the book, that where we need discipline is in saying no, because the more successful you get, it's this real catch-22, right? When you're broke and nothing, nobody wants you. But when you get, when people start knowing you're making 6 figures and then they hear you making 7 figures and, you're making 8 figures, everybody wants a piece of you. They want a piece of your wallet. They want a piece of your time. They want your charity money. They want you at charity events. They want you, to be at their show. They want you to be on their show. They want everything. And it's very difficult. But I tell people in one of my other books, I have another book called Perfect Week Formula. It's the best time management book you can get. I tell everybody to be the Nopra of their life. Because if you think about Nopra, she's queen of no, right? So Oprah has a billion plus fans, right? And so every fan would love to have a minute of Oprah's time. But can she give a billion people a minute of her time? Absolutely not. And because if she did that, she couldn't go out and create the stuff that impacts hundreds of millions of people at once. So she imagine how many times Oprah says no in a day to somebody, to people asking, like, you're busy guys and you guys have to say no all day. But Oprah's like a million times more popular than you. So she's getting a million more requests than you. And again, she would either be paralyzed with saying yes to everybody, or she has to say no. And yeah, it kind of sucks to say no. It's like, you can't sign everybody's autograph. You just don't have time for it. You eventually have to say no, last autograph, and move on. Or no autographs, I got to go because I got a show with somebody in here that's going to impact hundreds of millions of people. So no, 12 people, I can't give you 5 minutes of my time. And so that's the thing, is that so many people who have a business or who want to write a book or who want to do anything great, the reason why you're not doing great things is because you're doing too many good things. And that's one of the big messages of the book, where, The Dark Side of Discipline is the book that I wrote. And people are like, well, you're the world's most disciplined man. How is there a dark side of discipline? Well, we see a lot of people these days doing the challenges, 100 push-ups in 100 days, doing marathons, ultra marathons. I always make the joke, like, a marathoner, used to be like, yeah, oh man, you did a marathon? That's amazing. Now it's like,
that's it.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
do you even ultra marathon? And then like the Badwater ultra marathon guy goes like, ultra marathon, that's for like girls, like 10-year-old girls. But it's just gotten so out of hand these days. Like even fasting, intermittent fasting used to be like this nothing. It never existed. Then like 15 years ago, it became kind of popular. And now it's like, if you don't fast for 3 days in a row, once a month, like, are you even taking care of your health? I'm like, get lost, like, just let me live a simple life. But the reason, the thing that is destroying people's dreams is their pursuit of the good, and it's getting in the way of the great. And that's what is missing. And that's why people who are actually great stand out so much, because we're all too distracted by our phones to become great. And that's the bottom line.
Do you want to increase your returns and lower your taxes? Well, that's exactly what the infinite banking concept can do. This is a game changer, and we can show you how it works.
Book your free call with us and learn how to build wealth the smart way. Stop procrastinating. Go schedule a call now. The link is in the show notes. Well said. I was as I was driving home, I was talking to my wife about that idea, and 75 hard came up. Are you familiar with that? That was going through our gym. I'm sure none of the ladies are probably listening to this, right? But it went through the gym, and all the ladies were talking about 75 hard and how difficult.
Just to clarify, Cameron does go to the ladies' gym, okay? But that's why you're talking about all the ladies.
But how difficult it was, and how time-consuming throughout the day it is to like try to incorporate that on top of just kind of taking care of everything else. And that's what she was relaying to me, kind of along these same lines.
Exactly. So people are already too busy, right? Yeah. Like, everybody listening, raise your hand if you're too busy. 100% of people's hands would go up. And now you want to do a challenge that, there's 2 workouts a day or like just a component of it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And so one of the reasons why I wrote this book was because I had a friend of mine, longtime friend. I went to his wedding. I watched him and his wife have 3 kids. And I thought they had a great marriage. And, the guy had a 7-figure business. He had a beautiful home in Toronto. He had a fancy car. He had everything going for him. And he had to go through this challenge twice, not once, twice. And I watched it from the outside and I'm like, dude, I have listened to you and your wife talk about how busy you are. Like, you do not have, you're not going upstairs from your home office in time, and she's getting upset with you. And now you're doing this thing that requires 3 hours a day. Where are you taking this time from? Because I know that your business is growing and you're not taking the time from the business. So this is not going to end well. I didn't know it was going to end in divorce, but that's where it ended. And it's like, you just, anybody who's watching this from the outside is just looking like, the concept of unforced errors. If you ever play tennis or listen to tennis, there's something called the unforced error where you hit the ball into the net for no reason, right? And I'm like, this guy's just hitting the ball into the net over and over again. It's like unforced error, unforced error. What are you doing? And sure enough, when he was done the challenge the second time, his wife said, sayonara, see you later.
Wow.
You get to see the kids once every 2 weeks. For what? Internet claps on the back? Like, it drives me nuts because, again, when I was talking about the good getting in the way of the great, I was talking about, you're doing good things. You're reading a book a week. You really want to write a book, but you're reading a book a week and it's getting in the way of you writing your book. And I know your book's inside of you. Like, that's kind of like the soft version. But the hardcore version, the real reason I wrote the book was because people are letting the good destroy what's great. And that drives me nuts. Like, if you're going into these challenges, whether, you're like, you and your wife been married 10 years and now you're really just Uber drivers for your kids. And you really should sit down and have a really difficult discussion about this. But, oh no, you decide you're going to go and start a triathlon. Like, how does that make any sense? But you're doing something that's technically good and it's going to destroy the great because you won't sit down and do the hardest thing of all, which is have the difficult discussions. And that's what's missing. And, like you guys in your business, I'm sure you have had conversations with couples where it's like, man, you're sitting there listening to them talk about money and situations. You're like, you guys really need to have some hard conversations. That's going on through your head for sure. I know it. And, but people will do anything to avoid hard conversations. They will do an ultra marathon to avoid having a hard conversation with their marriage partner or their business partner, right? Like, you guys have seen that too, right? Where it's like, these 2 people should not be in business. They're passive aggressive, but they will not sit down and have that difficult conversation, but they will go and work out twice a day. And it's just a perverse form of procrastination is what I call it. You can see I get a little excited about this.
Yeah. Good.
No, but Craig, you came up with the perfect day formula.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know a lot of our listeners are high achievers and grinders. Can you paint a picture of what this perfect day formula looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really based on what works best for you. But the principles are, when you get up in the morning, as soon as possible, you need to work on your number one most important thing, because research shows we have the greatest discipline, willpower, and intention first thing in the morning. And so if you get up and you're like, at 2:00 in the afternoon, I'm going to tackle that, legal document. It's not going to happen, because your discipline and willpower is going to be gone. You're going to be scrolling. Your kids are going to get sick at school. You're going to have to go and deal with some emergency. It doesn't happen. It's got to happen early in the day. And then another key component is you need to plan and prepare today for tomorrow. So if you're getting up in the morning and you're doing your to-do list, you're already too late. Again, you're using the time of day when you have the greatest discipline, willpower, and intention just to figure out what you're going to do in the day. That is so backwards. You have to either, and I mean, I have people do their planning and preparation for tomorrow at 12 o'clock, at lunchtime, because if they try and do it at 5 o'clock, which is probably a better time to do it, they forget. They got to rush home. They got to take care of the kids. If it's Monday today, when you're listening to this, you have to plan Tuesday today. If it's Tuesday when you're listening to this, you plan Wednesday on Tuesday. You do not wait till Wednesday to plan Wednesday. And so that's another key component, because everything that we think of in life that is amazing, that is an amazing performance, It's all planning and preparation. Every single one of your favorite plays, your favorite movies, your favorite comedian's HBO special. Like no comedian was just like, you know what? Tonight I'm going to go film a Netflix special. I'm just going to make it up. Like nobody does that. Instead, they spent the last year perfecting every single joke, every little bit of timing about it. It's all choreographed preparation that looks like genius. And so that's very important for people to understand because everyone's listening, oh yeah, man, that makes total sense. But then you wonder why your days suck. It's because you don't do any planning and preparation for the most important performance in your life, which is your own. And that's something that has to change. So those are two of the key components. One of the other things that I talk about in the perfect day formula is a philosophy that everybody should use, which is the 3C formula. Control what you can, cope with what you can't control, and concentrate on what counts. So you control your day schedule as rigidly and disciplined as possible. And you plan and prepare for the chaos that's going to come into your world. So you cope with what you can't control by planning in advance to have, plans for when the kids get sick or when, somebody in the office is away or whatever. And then you do all of that stuff that doesn't sound like fun, but you do it so that you can concentrate on what counts, which means be present with your family in the evening. And that's the formula that really is the book. And that comes from Stoic philosophy and a Stoic philosopher named Epictetus, who, I was really into his stuff when I was writing that book.
Craig, I was looking at my notes from when I was driving. One of the other things that I wrote down was a quote that I think you mentioned from a Greek philosopher. He said, "You don't rise to the level of your goals, but you fall to the level of your preparation." Which I think is a lot of what you're saying here, but
and then James Clear said in his book Atomic Habits, he said you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems, right? So we talked about systems before, and like the example that we talk about or that I could talk about right now is, most people think they want to be more disciplined, and discipline is this generic term. And when they think of discipline, they think of, it's 7:00 at night. I haven't eaten since 8 a.m. and somebody puts chocolate cake in front of me, but I have discipline and I'm going to be like, just white knuckle and willpower and discipline. I'm not going to eat it. Well, that's not going to work. Like 90% of the time, your discipline is exhausted and you're going to give into it. But if you have a system for dealing with that, then you will avoid that situation. First of all, you'll make sure that you're not starving at 7:00 at night. You'll have built these systems in place so that you eat properly. That's the whole planning and preparation. The other thing that goes above and beyond that is standards. And so when you have your systems that then allow you to make the right decisions more often, you will start to build confidence in yourself and shift your identity. So for example, like if somebody says, I'm always late, if that's their perpetual state, that self-talk, they'll never be on time. But if they're committed to changing that, what they'll do is set up systems. So I'm going to have an alarm 30 minutes before every meeting that goes off and reminds me I got a meeting at 9:00. Okay, great. And then I'm going to have another alarm that goes off 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before, and I'm going to stop what I'm doing and I'm going to get ready for the meeting and I'm going to be early. And I'm going to have those 2 alarms go off before every single meeting so that I'm never late again. And then over time, at first you're going to be relying on the system, but over time you're going to build confidence and like, oh, I just did it. I was early for once. Amazing. And then like I did it again. I was early again. And the next thing you know, you're like, I'm never late. I'm not only not late, I'm always on time. I'm not always on time. I'm actually early. I'm always early. And now you're a different person and your identity has changed. And when you get to that point, you no longer need the system. You've outgrown the system once your identity is truly shifted. For example, I used to be a binge drinker. Now I'm the type of person, my identity is I do not drink alcohol. So when I go to a bar or a restaurant or a party, I have zero temptation because my standard is I am a non-drinker. And my standard eats discipline for breakfast. Because if either of you guys are social drinkers and you and I go to a bar and we sit down and we're with 5 other people and everybody else is drinking and they're like, hey, come on, Anthony, have a glass of wine, you pussy. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, I'm a non-drinker. I just don't drink alcohol, man. It's not for me. I quit years ago and I just don't drink. I haven't had a drink since and I'm not going to have a drink ever again. And you can peer pressure me and make fun of me all you want, but my standard is so high that the peer pressure will never get to me. But I used to be a social drinker, and I used to go to those events where it's like, oh man, I got that 8:30 meeting tomorrow. I don't want to be tired. I'm not going to drink tonight. And then next thing you know, there's like 6 vultures over top of me, like trying to needle me into drinking. And I spend so much energy in my head going back. Should I, shouldn't I? Oh man, now I got to talk to this person, tell them what. But if I have a standard, I don't waste a single bit of energy on that, because there's no decision fatigue. It's like the Steve Jobs wore the black turtleneck and the blue jeans before every Apple presentation. He didn't have to waste an ounce of energy on like, what am I going to wear? He put all of his energy into the presentation and the sales pitch, and it was successful. So that's the same thing with the standards, identity, discipline, and the systems. Is there's differences between each of them, and you want to get to the point where your identity is so strong that you don't need any of that other stuff.
So Cam, little advice. Maybe your identity should be, I don't drink Zimas, because he doesn't drink much, but if you put a Zima or like a White Claw in front of him, he's going to throw him down. But in all seriousness, Greg, like, let's say if our listeners are like the hero of the story, what are some common villains that are sapping our time and energy?
Oh man, the phone. And so listen, if you have a problem with your phone, don't feel bad, because every morning there's a 10,000 or 100,000 PhDs from MIT who go to work in Silicon Valley. This is where we've sent our best people, our smartest minds, is to make you addicted to your phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whatever app they work for, right? You're not gonna outsmart 10,000 PhDs from MIT every single day. So what you have to do is build systems around using your phone so that they don't suck you in. And that means not downloading all the apps in the world. That means making sure that your notifications are turned off, all the basics. One of the apps that we do recommend is something called the Opal app, OPAL. It has 4 million downloads and a 4.8 star review on the App Store. I don't make a penny from it, but it has helped so many of our clients and so many of our book readers, because what it allows you to do is build a fence around yourself. And that's what you need to do for all the distractions in your life. But when it comes to your phone, that's one of the biggest distractions. So the Opal app allows you to block everything. You can block whatever you want. You can block some stuff and not everything, but you can block all the things that are distractions to you. So if on Monday morning you're on YouTube watching sports highlights, you block YouTube from, the moment you get up until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Your phone does not allow you to go on YouTube. So if you go to the bathroom and you're like sitting there and you're like trying to go on YouTube, if you use the Opal app, it stops you, and there's no workaround. So now you are putting up barriers, friction between you and your bad habit. Then you can block everything. And, so my co-author of the book, what he does is from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m., which is his deep work time, he uses the Opal app, and all he does is work on his computer, and he doesn't screw around on his computer. And then from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., when he's home with his kids and his wife, he has the Opal app again, because he was tempted in the past when he was with his kids to like pick up his phone and check his messages. But now he knows that even if he picks up his phone, he can't access it, so he won't pick it up. And it's like when you go bowling with a 4-year-old, right? They put the thing up so the 4-year-old can't get a gutter ball. And that's what building these systems and fences around you are like, so that you remove these toxic temptations from your life. Because one of the things we talk about in the book, we use this funny little story to emphasize how most success in life comes through subtracting the bad things and not adding more good things. And so, imagine Cameron and I were running my wife was actually going to run the Las Vegas half marathon this year, but she just had a baby and had a baby injury, so she couldn't do it. But imagine you and I were running the half marathon, and everything else being equal, our times were equal, and somebody right before the marathon comes up and says, "Hey, Cameron, you get to wear these really fancy shoes. It's the same shoes that top marathoners in the world run. It'll take 15 seconds off your race." And then I'm like, "Oh, cool. Well, what do I get?" And they go, "Well, you get a 50-pound bag of sand to wear on your back for the race." Which one of those is going to have a huger impact? Obviously, the negative. Yeah. And that's the analogy. It's like we all have these balls and chains, whether it's negative self-talk, whether it's we drink too much, whether we watch too much Netflix, whether, we have porn addiction, whether, we gossip, whether we play too much fantasy football. If you remove the vice from your life and you add nothing else good, you're already going to be 2, 3, 4 times ahead because there's no ball and chain holding you back. And if I could do that for everybody in the world and we wouldn't have to add a single cold plunge to anybody's life. We just have to get rid of the bad that's holding them back. And the more that we work on eliminating the vices and temptations and distractions, the further and more impactful that change is going to be than adding like a green juice in the morning.
I think that makes a lot of sense, of taking away some of the negatives is a bigger impact than adding positives. And I think a lot of times we read a book or we hear this podcast, or like we think the 72 hard is going to solve our problem, or just adding these good things. So no, I'm just kind of speaking out loud.
Sure.
That was very impactful. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, because I used to be a binge drinker. I knew how bad binge drinking was. Like when you drink, you lose 2 days. You lose the day of the drinking, you lose the next day. And if I just stopped drinking, I didn't have to do anything else to add into my life. I just had to stop drinking to excess. And when I stopped that, man, there must have been a dozen areas of my life that immediately improved. And I didn't have to do anything good. I just had to stop being bad. And that will help a lot of people. And it's very much like in the finance, like, what you guys do.
Mm-hmm.
You guys do add, have them do something good. But in most cases, most people's financial problems come from what? Overspending. Doing something bad, overspending. It's like if you just stop spending $100,000 on your $80,000 a year income, you'll have less problems.
Craig, your shirt says success loves speed.
Yeah,
how quickly can people implement some of these tactics to get to where they want to go?
Man, immediately. So like one of the most important things we teach in the Dark Side of Discipline book is that the ultimate definition of discipline is putting a level 10 effort into your level 10 problem. Because again, most people are filling their days with good stuff, but they're ignoring the level 10 issue in their life, right? So, if your marriage is on the rocks, that's your level 10 problem. And you need to admit that. And then you need to say, all right, if I have a level 10 problem, and it could be your health, it could be your marriage, it could be your financial situation, could be your business partnership, whatever your level 10 problem is in life, think about what actual level of effort are you giving it? 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10. The immediate thing that you can do is make a list of all the things that need to be done in order for you to give a level 10 effort to your level 10 problem. So if you weigh 50 pounds more than you should, mm-hmm. What are 20 things that you can do to put a level 10 effort into your weight loss? Well, you get a personal trainer, you get a nutritionist, you could get a workout buddy, you could, get a meal prep service, you could start drinking more water, you could sleep more, you could stop drinking alcohol. Like there's going to be 20 things easy. And then just pick the 2, like immediately, you're going to do all of them, but pick the 2 or 3 things that are going to have the 80-20 impact, right? 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. What are the 20% that are going to give you the biggest impact, and start them right now? So, success loves speed. If you got a problem, you're going to solve it faster if you start today.
What advice would you give someone who said, well, I've tried something like this before, but I just end up not following it through?
Yeah, great question. And so I've ran transformation contests, body fat transformation contests for 15 years, right? And so what we found is that there were a couple of principles that were common in all the people that stayed through the end of the transformation contest and made amazing changes. It had nothing to do with how much money they had, what their job was, whether they were married or not, because we had these single moms of 4. If they were truly committed, they would follow through and win the contest. And then we'd have people who had tons of money and tons of support, and they would quit. And this goes for everything, not just weight loss contests, but everything. And so a couple of the things are better planning and preparation than ever before. Better planning and preparation than ever before. Not just planning and preparation, but better planning and preparation than ever before. So on the weight loss side, if you've ever tried a weight loss program, and, for any of the people listening, and you've not failed at it, it's because you didn't plan and prepare properly. You didn't get the meal prep done. You didn't, put the workouts on the calendar. You didn't get a workout buddy. You didn't have the workout clothes. You didn't, figure out the least friction in the way of your workout program. And that's why it failed. But if you've ever succeeded, it's because you set aside Sunday to do meal prep. You did 2 grocery runs every week. You figured out your workouts every single day of the week. You had a workout buddy. You just planned and prepared better. And it's like, did you have an amazing wedding? Yes. It's because you did better planning and preparation. Or you had an amazing birthday party, better than all the other parties you had before. Yeah, you actually planned and prepared this one better. So that's one. The other thing, the missing link in most people's success journeys is connection. It's that accountability. Because if you raise your hand to yourself and you tell yourself, hey, this is the year I'm going to lose 20 pounds on January 1st, and you tell no one else, well, you've only told the easiest person in the world to let down, yourself. Day 4 of this, I quit. And there's no consequences. But if you, let's say you have a business partner or a friend or an older brother or parent or just a mentor, and you deeply do not want to disappoint that person. And you tell them, hey, this is the year I'm going to lose 20 pounds. In fact, I'm going to lose that 20 pounds by March 31st. And you tell that person, and you look up to them. Well, you've burned the boats, because there's no way that your brain will allow you to not follow through. Likewise, if you're in a community, so I don't know if you guys have a community for your program and stuff like that, but imagine you guys had a community of people who all were like-minded, they want to grow their financial situation, and it was virtual community, and you said, hey, we're going to have a financial transformation, and people came in and said, hey, in the next 90 days, I want to get out of $20,000 worth of credit card debt, and I want to have $25,000 worth of savings. And they told everybody in the community. Well, the community would go out of their way to help them, first of all. But second of all, because the person is a person of integrity saying that, they do not want to be a hypocrite and not follow through. So again, it's a burn the boats moment. And for everybody out there who wants to change any aspect of your life, if you've tried and failed in the past, it's because you did not tell somebody. And when you tell somebody that you A, deeply do not want to disappoint, or B, a community of like-minded people, that is a system where all of a sudden your brain does the work a whole lot easier. It makes the right actions almost automatic. Now, there's still going to be some sacrifice in there, but when you do not want to let people down, you do it. And that's the missing link. So for anybody who is sitting there going, man, I really want to change any aspect of my life, the reason why you haven't is because you haven't done planning and preparation to the level that needs to be done. And 2, you haven't told anyone.
Craig, what resources do you have available if somebody's out there listening and they're thinking, man, you know what? That's exactly what I need.
Yeah. So anybody can message me on Instagram at Real Craig Ballantyne, or on LinkedIn, Craig Ballantyne, and go and grab the book, darksideofdiscipline.com, or grab it from Amazon, the audiobook, ebook, paperback, hard copy, all those good things. And then I have another book that's very helpful on time management. So it's called The Perfect Week Formula, and it'll help you make 10 extra hours so that you can use those 10 extra hours for your family or for your business or for whatever you want. But you will be amazed by how much more you'll get done.
There are those great resources, and I've been doing prep for this. I've listened to you on multiple platforms and trying to incorporate some of your teachings. And one of them was not only planning the night before, but then you prioritize. Yep. And you don't do number 2 until 1 is done.
Yeah.
Sounds easy. And then the next day,
it's simple. It's not easy. Those are 2 different things.
It's simple. The next day, I mean, that is one thing I do. It's just not on the regular. But then I'm like, but I always hunt and peck. I have like, this is what I'm going to do today. Yeah. But this one, I prioritized it. I did number 1. Okay. And then before I went to number 2, I'm like, oh yeah, number 4 is going to be more fun. And I wanted to check, and I ended up doing number 4 when I knew I was supposed to fall in order. But is this just me, or any tips and tricks for something like that?
Yeah. Hey, listen, everybody does that. And again, it's back to, if you had told somebody that you deeply do not want to disappoint, that this is how the day was going to go, then you would have followed through and went, man, as much as I'd really love to do number 4, I'm going to park my butt on this chair and finish the second thing on the list. The other thing that you can do is watch the movie of your day every single day and compare it to the movie script. And wherever there's differences, you figure out a system to make sure that this mistake doesn't happen again. What I mean by that is everybody has a movie script for their day. It's their to-do list, it's their Google Calendar, whatever. And then everybody has a movie of their day that we can watch at 7 o'clock at the end of the day, right? We can go back and go, well, here's my to-do list and my schedule, and here's how the day actually went. And you compare them and go, where are they not? Oh yeah, here at 9 o'clock, I was supposed to do this, but according to the schedule, but I did this instead. Why did I do that? How can I make sure that next time when I'm supposed to do this, I will actually follow through on the plan? Well, I can set it up so that, my assistant, helps me with this and then, or sends me a reminder or gives me a call or whatever. Like, all you have to do is just every single day you do this and you get 1% better because you build a system for every time you screw up. So I screwed up here. How do I build a system to make sure I don't screw up? Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, here I screwed up again. How do I build a system to make sure I don't screw up again? Great. And then you do that every single day and you're just iterating, getting 1% better or 10% better every single day. And that's what you need to do if you're serious about this.
I like it. All goes down to planning and accountability and the ability to be in community. Now, how else do you help? I know you have these books.
Yep.
How else do you help people? You'd mentioned you did some coaching or an online course. You mind sharing some of that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So we coach entrepreneurs who are doing $500,000 to $20 million, and we just help them, put more systems in their business to bring back their time so that they can put more time into making more profits. And again, anybody can hit me up on Instagram at Real Craig Ballantyne or visit craigballantyne.com for more information.
Love it. Craig, thanks so much for your time, man. This is tremendous and a huge value to our listeners.
Thank you. And I appreciate you going through the book yesterday, my man.
Absolutely.
Go make it a fantastic day.
If you like this video, I know you're like this one. And if you want to learn how investors use infinite banking to increase their returns and lower their taxes, check this out. And if you have some questions and want to see if infinite banking is for you, hop on a discovery call with us. Link for that will be in the description.